Hey everyone, so this is my 72 Mustang Mach 1, and I have done a lot of mechanical work, but not a lot of body work on it. It needs a lot of body work, but I'm better at mechanicals, so that's what I'm going to do. Anyway, one of the last things I haven't done on this car mechanically is the front suspension. So, I came across a good manufacturer's rebate and couldn't pass up buying a QA1 front coil-over kit. Here's half of what comes in one of the boxes. Got the collars for the coil-over shock, instructions, a replacement shock tower cap. This lets it kind of sit a little bit higher and use the different shock mounting style. Thrust washer that goes between one of these lock rings and the spring. New hardware. The adjustable shock, that's the goodness. And a coil spring. I went with 400 pound per inch springs. I wanted it kind of light. I would have went lighter because I like to drag race it, but I think that might have been a little too soft. So I think 400 will be a good spot to go. Let's get started. There's a wheel. It's in the air already. Let's take her out. Like a glove. Okay, so as you can see, this is all dirt colored. Let's start by getting in here, taking off this cover. There's some bolts there, that cover will come off. Then we'll take the shock off, compress the spring. I got a trick for that, and go from there. I'm intending on replacing at least these upper control arms. As you can see, you've got age on them. Ooh, the other side had more gunk in it. Alright, next up, take the shock tower cap off. Not for the shock, I don't think I'll have to remove the strut brace. Then the bolts at the bottom of the shock, pull the shock out, and then we'll get the spring compressor out. Okay, next up, the fun part. The part everyone gets the fear when they start doing is the compressing the spring on these Mustangs. As you can see, there's not a lot of side clearance, so people generally don't use the outside clamp style ones, they go inside. But the way the shock tower works, it's kind of hard to get the two hooks of one of the inside spring compressors to hook on coil springs. So the easy solution is to take your inside coil spring compressor, remove the bottom threaded piece, get rid of the other top hook. You don't need that. I just had this nice thick piece of aluminum laying around. I just drilled a hole big enough. Put the threaded rod through there. And then that goes up top, seating nicely right there. That ain't going to go anywhere when you compress it. And then I like to just kind of feed the bottom hooks in and go from there, start threading them on. Got another one here is I have a factory spring. That's the top. If you go from there, you can see that's not as long as the coil spring. So don't go hooking this thing right on the very bottom coil. As you go to loosen it, pop. What you can do as a safety mechanism, just go in from outside, clamp on some of these outside style ones onto there while it's compressed. Make sure to leave some thread to release. Then you can get the inside one out, remove the spring with these, and then you can just loosen those off nice and gingerly. Make sure you don't hurt yourself. Well, looks like I'm going to need 2 hands for this part. And I'm not left-handed, so. Alright, so I have the internal compressor in there. I'm looks like 3-4 coils up from the bottom. Should give me lots of room to release it when I'm done. I'm just going to start with snugging it up from the top with my electric ratchet. Oops. Again, not left-handed. And going the wrong way. Only human here. And that's going to be about 30 foot-pounds. I love this ratchet because it's nice and ginger. I've stripped out too much stuff with impact, so I'm careful these days. I'm going to do the rest with just a hand ratchet. And then as soon as I see that the pressure is released really well down here, and this is fully off of its seat, then I'll probably go ahead and remove the lower control arm. You don't have to get the spring out, but I plan on taking it off anyway, so I might as well get it out of the way. It's less stuff for the coil to bind on and potentially spring back at people when it's getting released. Alright, I've been hand tightening this, and in me trying to film this and work on it at the same time, I didn't double check the seating on these internal spring compressor hooks. Look at that. This is under a lot of tension right now, and you can see one hook has popped off and the other is not fully seated around the coil. So this is really dangerous right now. I don't even really want to loosen it off like this because it's going to move it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some external spring compressors on it to just hold that tension. Okay, so I've got 2 more external spring compressors on the outside to help hold that spring. Internal one's still hooked in there good. And I have an adequate amount of clearance from the control arm. My bolts are stuck here. I was going to take the saddle off to make some extra room. But I think I'm just going to try and get the control arm out. I have bolt-in upper ball joints. So I've removed the 3 bolts for that. Some have 4 bolt style ones. Some are not bolt-in at all. They're riveted in. But mine were bolt-in, so I just unbolted that rather than messing with this right now. So there's 2 bolts on the back end of these upper control arms. They're just accessible from the shock tower. I'll get at those 2 and see what happens. And you probably can't see too good, but way down in there is where the bolts are. See my wrench on one of them. This guy. There's one. Show the other. Anyway. Okay, with the way the spring's sitting, I don't quite have enough room to pull the control arm out. So I'm unbolting the spring side. I'll take some work because the one nut was stuck. So, but I got her. This will come out, and then I'll have to release the spring. I'll put the nuts back on the back end of the upper control arm so the spring doesn't pop that out and cause potential for parts to fly around as I'm releasing it. But just a minor setback. I thought I could get her to work. You can get specialty spring compressors that bolt into the bottom of the perch here. Then you just unbolt this, compress it. Perch stays with the spring. But that is specific to Mustangs. But if you're going to do a bunch of them, probably good to do, or make, I guess. Wouldn't be that hard. Okay, on to unbolting this. Alright, spring perch is out. I'm going to slowly start loosening off upper spring compressor. The other 2 are going to stay on there. I like to do this by hand so I can do it slowly and kind of keep an eye on how things are releasing under here. I'm going to put the camera down and do this a little more carefully. Okay, so I've hand loosened the top. Watch to make sure that the spring was sliding and movable as it released its pressure. I'm now at the point where I can tell that this is feeling a little looser up top. It's getting easier and easier to unscrew. So I am confident now that the pressure is not at the top of the seat. See it moving. These coil spring compressors are kind of holding most of the spring together. So I'm going to fully release this inner one now. should be enough to have, oh no, there's still more. I'll just keep going until this bottom guy pops off, and then I should be able to pull the spring out. And I just got that all the way out so that I could get the inner one out. Now we still have the inner coil in there and the other two. The spring is still compressed by the other compressors. And I just gotta pull her on out. Out with the old. Time to inspect and order some parts. Also note that I did tie this back so it doesn't fall forward and pull on the brake line. Never a good thing.